Do it. I call to order the regular meeting of the Anchorage Assembly. Madam Clerk, would you take roll call?
Mr. Birch?
Here.
Mr. Flynn? Ms. Osiander is excused for the moment. She's in traffic. Mr. Trombley?
Here.
Mr. Starr is also excused for the moment. Ms. Johnston? Here. Mr. Hall?
Here.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Honored to be here.
Mr. Honeman?
Here.
Mr. Trainee?
Here.
And Ms. Drummond? Here. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Trombley, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Let the record show that Mr. Starr has joined us. You apparently got through the traffic okay? Went around. Okay, we have before us for action minutes of two previous meetings, the regular meeting of March 13th, 2012. Second. Any changes, any discussion? Hearing none. We will accept those unanimously. And the regular meeting of March 27th, 2012.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, we will accept that unanimously. Mr. Mayor, have a report for us this evening?
No report today, sir.
Thank you. In the Assembly Chair report, I've got some things to share with you this evening, and I'll be honest with you, I hope from this point forward my Assembly Chair report tends to get a little shorter, but with some of the ongoing issues with the election, I want to share with you this evening, it's a statement of public apology to Wendy Isabel. And before we go any further in the meeting tonight, I wish to read this open letter of apology to Wendy Isabel, election worker at Romick Precinct 675 in the April 3, 2012 election. Dear Miss Isabel, you have my profound apology. You have served this community as an election worker in the 2008 and 2012 elections. You have been generous with your time. You brought forward to this body twice in public testimony the concern you have about broken seals on the AccuVote machines, the chain of custody of the machines, the instructions in election worker training about what to do if a seal is broken. In addition to telling us your concerns, you came to the Election Commission for interview on April 21st, 2012, and completed an interview. Election Commissioner Chair Gwen Matthew has followed up. We have written notes of your interview. From these written notes, I am taking your concern about the AccuVote machine count at Precinct 675 as this restatement. The manner of storage of machines at the home of the precinct chair, coupled with your personal observation at Romick Precinct 675 in this 2012 election of a seal broken in a manner not consistent with transport, creates a concern. Security of the machine could be breached before the election and extra votes added. We are taking on this concern by a hand count of Romick Precinct 675. We acknowledge and agree instruction workers in election worker training need clarification, so all election workers know what to do when confronted with a voting machine seal broken in the manner you describe. We are also requesting further inquiry by the independent investigator as to how and why the voting machine testing in place for the 2000 election is no longer in place. You have not been treated well by us for your efforts, Wendy, and I am so sorry. We want the issues acknowledged so that we can run them to ground. I am embarrassed that we caused you to be upset. You have my public and personal apologies. Signed, Ernie Hall, Assembly Chair. I would also share with you in regards to the election that I am very pleased to announce this evening that the body will be approving a contract for the third-party investigator. That investigator is retired Judge Dan Hensley, and we're extremely excited about getting him on board and letting him begin his work. I'm also very pleased to announce that any of you that might be interested, at 8:30 tomorrow morning, the hand count will begin on 15 precincts, and the precinct that had the broken seal is going to be the first precinct counted. That's going to be in room 155 of City Hall. So if you want to come and observe, you're more than welcome. I'd also share with you that the smoking ordinance that's on the agenda for this evening is going to be carried forward. Mr. Starr has some work that he wanted to have done on that. Unfortunately, the municipal attorney has been extremely busy, so we will carry that forward to our next meeting. We will open a public testimony this evening, but I would just give a heads up to anyone here that wants to testify. You are more than welcome to testify. We will continue, but I think it may be well worth your time to see what the final document looks like so that you're educated on specifically what you're speaking to. And with that, I will go into Assembly committee reports, beginning with Mr. Birch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a number of us have had an opportunity to participate in several meeting opportunities. We met last week with our enterprise committee with the Port of Tacoma. I believe it was Mr. John Wolf, their port director. A very productive meeting with the mayor and the enterprise committee and the Port Commission. It was good to actually talk to an organization that's very supportive of some of the resource development issues that we have in Alaska. Again, on May 3rd, we met with the Girdwood Board of Supervisors. They have a quarterly meeting here in town. We kind of alternate between Anchorage and Girdwood, but that was good to talk about the number of projects. Girdwood is a little bit of a different creation in that it doesn't really operate under the community council system. It's got a board of supervisors, which has some additional responsibility. Ms. Johnston and I typically participate in a number of those meetings, and we're pleased to see that there's a number of program improvements that are happening down there. Our AMATS policy committee met last week. We finally approved the, I guess it's now the MTP, Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and with a few amendments and tweaks, but finally got it out the door. As we mentioned earlier, will be soon be under revision again on the next planning cycle in a couple of years. And then lastly, I wanted to mention on Saturday, just it makes you proud to live in Alaska, but going to the aviation trade show at the airport was just phenomenal. Huge turnout. It's free. Kids have a great time. It's really a great opportunity to see what Alaska has to offer and the community has to offer the aviation industry. And that was also backed up by the airport or the railroad open house. I think the longest line there was the free railroad rides, which was pretty extensive. As a matter of fact, I don't think I could wait. But anyway, it was a good weekend and a good week to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Birch. Mr. Flynn.
Nothing, Mr. Chairman. However, from someone who knows, a little tip, if you go toward the end of the railroad open house, the line's a lot shorter.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Mr. Trombley.
Two things, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to say happy birthday. Thought maybe you were going to get away with that one, but apparently there's chocolate-covered strawberries in the back for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then Ethics and Elections Committee met on Monday. Had a great discussion, great talk. A couple of things that I'd like to mention is that I have yet to determine if it's going to be an assembly work session or if it's just going to be a committee meeting at which we're going to heavily request that all assembly members update ethics training. It is by code, we're all supposed to receive it, and so I think it's important that we all, if we've received it, we do update ourselves on that. So I'm looking at either the 18th of May or the 25th. I've yet to determine exactly which day that's going to be. So if anyone here has any scheduling conflicts with that, obviously that's flexible. I want to make sure as many people can be there at that time. Second thing, I would just like to let everybody know and request, I should say, that as we move forward with restructuring Title 28, number one, we take our time in that we don't become too reactionary in going overboard, and that any changes to Title 28 first come through the committee so we can vet those, remove duplicates, and have the opportunity for more discussion. And that I know that process is going to take place along more than likely after we approve this contract and the recommendations that comes forward from that as well. So those are some of the things that we touched on, and that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Trombley. I might point out to you that the 25th is the Friday before Memorial Day. You might rethink that. Ms. Osiander, it's good to see you.
I set a new record for the length of the time to drive from Chugiak, Mr.
Did
Chairman.
you?
Apologies.
That's fine. Do you have a report for us?
I just wanted to let the body know that I am now regularly attending the Planning and Zoning Commission work sessions on Title 21 in order to urge along. And they are making progress. They now assume June 15th as the date they'll get it to us.
Thank you, Ms. Osiander. Mr. Birch?
No, Mr. Starr.
Pardon?
This one, maybe.
No, I realize that. Mr. Birch is on my queue. Mr. Starr, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
I also drove at length. I sped a little bit too. The chief's not here, so I'm off the hook. But I don't have a report, but I also want to echo the trade show comments, and it was sort of a static display as well. All branches of the military were represented, as well as the FedEx and UPS people. FedEx, in fact, gives us their large hangar at Northern Lights. It's not to overemphasize aviation necessarily, but those that aren't aware of it, that's the show that occurred this weekend is about the third largest trade show in the United States. Vendors come from all over the world to solicit Alaska business, and I was just astounded by not only the local manufacturer, the number of jobs tied up into it, but the interest in Alaska. So I'll perhaps meet with the mayor and the city manager next year to make sure that the municipality is represented there, perhaps with a booth or Merrill Field at the very least. So it was an outstanding show and good weather. So all things said, they're on the move, and that's good to see for our industries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Ms. Johnston.
Yes, just to add, as far as the Enterprise Committee and the Port of Tacoma, it was nice to hear from the Port of Tacoma's director that he is he says communication should go both ways, that he's open to always be of assistance to us, both in just how they run their port and how it could help us, and how they've had construction difficulties and how they've worked it through, and also just helping us politically when we have some issues up here. And so it was a good meeting. I'd also like to say I did a pass-off with Miss Gray Jackson on the Lemonade Day. I did the early run, and she did the second run, and it was a lot of fun seeing the kids out there with their lemonade stands and their different business models, and it really is. You can't do it without smiling. You do drink a lot of lemonade, though. And I would also like to echo Mr. Trombley, and in case you didn't, because I'm not sure if he said it quite loud enough, I'd like to wish our chair happy birthday, and maybe we can just keep wishing him all the way down. Happy birthday.
Maybe it'll make the calendar go backwards. Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I talked to Michelle Drew, who is the partner in charge for our audit, our independent audit with Mukunda, and I'm going to be meeting with her to get an update on the audit progress. And she also reminded me that there's a professional audit requirement, and it's audit standard number 99, and it's dealing with fraud. And the meeting is basically to talk with the briefly with the chair of the audit committee just to confirm that there's no suspicion of fraud within the municipality, and I don't think there is, and if anybody thinks there is, let me know before the meeting. But it's being scheduled anyway, and I wanted to share that with the body. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Gray-Jackson. Mr. Horniman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and happy birthday. Plenty-9 this year, is it?
Plenty-9.
And just a reminder that the Public Safety Committee, normally the second Wednesday of every month, there are 5 Wednesdays this month, so we opted for the 16th of May, so not tomorrow, but the following Wednesday, and it appears that the Building Permit Center conference room as well, because we had conflict with room 155 apparently for the recount. And so, unfortunately, we will not be able to talk the fluoride discussion for this month, postponed until June 6th because of some noted dentist professional needed to be able to make a presentation that we could better understand the issues of fluoride. But looking forward to hearing other matters before the Public Safety Committee next Wednesday, the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. Horniman. Mr. Trainee.
Nothing, Ernie. Is this your 35th birthday for the 35th time or what?
Pretty close.
Had a friend who his wife used to have a SOB birthday party for him, silly old buzzard.
Yep.
He had the 35th time, so congratulations, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Trainee. Ms. Drummond, welcome back.
Thank you very much. It was a pretty exciting flight back last night, and former Assembly member Janice Schamberg and her husband Brock were on the plane, as well as Mr. Whitekeys. It was a lot of fun. And happy birthday, Mr. Chair. I think we should sing happy birthday.
No, I don't think so.
Come on.
That's the discretion of the chair, and it ain't going to happen.
What are you going to do, call me out of order?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Drummond. We have an addendum to the agenda and one item for laid on the table, so if you'll bear with me, I will read into after a motion.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Under 9C2, Anchorage Memorandum AM 281, recommendation for award to Roger Hickel Contracting Incorporated for 2012 Merrillfield Airport improvements, rehabilitate taxiway, taxiway queue and apron, Phase 3 for the municipality of Anchorage. Merrillfield Airport, ITB 2012CO17 in the amount of $1,751,898.05 for the purchasing department. 9C3, Assembly Memorandum Number AM 282, recommendation of award to Earhart Roofing Company, Incorporated, for the Transit Building re-roof and minor upgrades for the Municipality of Anchorage Public Works Department, ITB 2012 CO116, in the amount of $1,898. The purchasing department. 9D14, under new business, Assembly Memorandum Number AM 283, sole source contract with the Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities to construct betterments to manholes on Interceptor D during the new Seward Highway construction for the Municipality of Anchorage, Alaska Water and Wastewater Utility, in the amount of $200,000. And 9D15, Assembly Memorandum Number AM 284, proprietary purchase of a 5-year lease with Alaska Enterprise Solutions, formerly Xerox Corporation, for an upgrade to a Xerox X770 digital color press and associated software upgrades for the Municipality of Anchorage, Information Technology Department, in the amount of $347,872.80 to the Purchasing Department. 9F8, Ordinance and Resolutions for Introduction, Resolution Number AR 130, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating $4,400,000 from the Public Works Department Maintenance and Operation Division, Equipment Maintenance Internal Service Operating Fund 601, Unrestricted Net Assets Account, to the Equipment Maintenance Internal Service Capital Fund 606 to purchase replacement vehicles and equipment. That is for public hearing on 5/22/12, and that is accompanied by Assembly Memorandum Number AM 285. And our laid on the table item tonight is 9B9. It is Anchorage, or AR number 131, a resolution approving a contract to independent investigate the April 3, 2012 municipal election. I believe that's everything we have. Okay. I now need a motion on the we vote the motion to incorporate.
Second.
Okay. Please vote. Okay, we've incorporated the agenda items to be pulled. Okay. Motion on the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Starting with you, Mr. Birch, any items to pull?
No items.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn. Ms. Osiander. Mr. Trombley. Mr. Starr.
From the addendum 9C2 for declare a conflict.
Ms. Johnston.
No, thank you.
Ms. Selvey Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to pull 9, Bravo 9, the laid on the table item, and I'd also like to pull 9, Elephant 1. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Honeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 9A Alpha 1 on the regular agenda for reading.
Thank you, Mr. Honeman. Mr. Trainee.
9D7, page 4.
9D7.
Page 4.
Okay. Is that all, Mr. Trainee?
No, sir.
Ms. Drummond.
No items, Mr. Chair, although I'd just like to wonder if the word betterment is an official engineering term on 9D14 on the agenda, the addendum agenda. I thought that was an interesting phrase.
That is, and, I'll be honest with you. Mr. Vacalis has a great response to that.
I'd love to hear it.
Betterments.
Would you like me to pull that to ask the question?
No, we'll have someone come up and answer that for you. It's a good question.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Drummond, a betterment is basically an improvement.
I figured as much. Now, let me ask you a question. Having grown up in New York City and hearing that my home city has a big problem with the stealing of manhole covers, will these betterments include anti-theft arrangements for manhole covers, or do we not have that problem in our community?
We haven't actually faced that problem here. We know that it has happened in some of the bigger cities, even in the Northwest. Mm-hmm. But if anybody wants a manhole cover and they want to carry it away, then we should hire them.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Honeman.
Yes.
Just for the others' edification, I had a call from a very concerned constituent last summer on manholes, and particularly in repavement of roads. And can you explain, is it going to be, as the construction or repaving is being done, that there are going to be cutouts, or will it get paved over and then a diamond-shaped cut and then put the re-ring and plate in on top of that? It makes a difference. Some people thought that they spent a lot of money repaving Muldoon Road, and then in the middle of the night they saw workers out there cutting squares or rectangle or diamond-shaped holes in the pavement. And I thought it was kind of crazy that, that they would cut up perfectly good brand-new asphalt. As I went out there and actually inspected myself, I found that it is actually a process. Do you know if that's which process to be used?
It's up to the contractor to select the means and methods of constructing a roadway, and certainly the contractor also has the duty to set the manhole ring at the appropriate level for the road. So it's often more efficient for him to go ahead and pave over and then cut it back out rather than reset the manhole ring and then pave around it.
Okay. And sometimes it makes a difference because, again, it didn't make sense to me until like 2 in the morning. I went out and actually visually inspected myself what they were doing, and it was explained by the contractor that they do actually pull the rings, the height ring, pave it, go back with a metal detector, make a diamond cutout, cut the asphalt up, and put the new ring in, and do an infrared heat patch with the asphalt. It's pretty intricate, pretty neat process to watch, but just to assure the public that it is a functional way of doing it, and it's not carrying up perfectly good asphalt.
Absolutely, and the main thing is that we want to make sure that the manhole ring is set at the right elevation so that we don't have a designed-in pothole, nor do we have a manhole ring that's elevated too high and causes an issue for either public traffic or road graders to come along and knock themselves against that manhole ring.
Well, here's to good betterment.
Thanks very much, Mr. Arnold.
No.
Thank you. Any other items to be pulled? If not, we'll vote on the consent agenda, less the items that we've pulled.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Could you repeat the items that were pulled?
Yes.
For those of us who aren't as quick.
Okay. We've got item 9A1, B9, C2, D9, and E1.
I see Delta 7 too, Mr. Chairman.
The 7.
Delta 7. Okay. Delta 7.
And I'm sorry, was it Delta 1 or Echo 1?
Echo 1.
Thank you.
She called it Ellen.
Are we clear? Very good. Please vote. That passes unanimously. We have 9. Yes, Mr. Holmes.
You might want to congratulate all the people and have them introduce themselves who were appointed to boards and commissions. We had a lot of appointments tonight.
We do. I actually had that at the end, but we could do that. Anyone in the audience that has just been appointed to a board or a commission, please come up and introduce yourself so we can tell you how eternally grateful we are to you to agree to come and give that kind of service to the community. Mr. Ferguson, you can lead. Well, we haven't done you yet, Mr. Ferguson. Anyone else, please?
I'll go first. My name is Elizabeth Giardina. I was recently appointed to the Library Advisory Board. Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity, and I look forward to jumping in, getting to know people, and how my skills and experience can be an asset to the team. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Guess I'll go second. My name's Joe Riggs. I'm just got appointed to the Budget Advisory Committee. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I look forward to getting to know you all and working with you in the future.
Great. Thank you. We appreciate that. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman? Well, not appointed to a board or commission, and I know Mr. Trainee pulled the Bouchou nomination, but and not required for your confirmation, but our new librarian is with us, and if she'd like to come up and introduce herself.
Please do.
I'm not sure everybody's had a chance to meet her yet. Mary Jo Torgerson, welcome aboard.
Good evening, Assembly members. I'm Mary Jo Torgerson. This is about my 9th day. I'm very excited to forge ahead. We have lots of changes coming at the library, and so I look forward to working with all of you.
We are very excited about having you there. Look forward to working with you. So excited we gave you a brand new person on your advisory board tonight.
Yes, that's great.
Thank you. Okay, the item before us is 9A1, resolution number AR 119, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly supporting the National Association of Letter Carriers 20th Annual Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive on Saturday, May 12th, 2012.
Move to approve.
And all in favor, or vote? Just vote. Unanimous approval. Mr. Honeman.
Yes, sir. I think Ms. Gray Jackson will make a presentation to the National Association of Letter Carriers. I'm not sure if one or all of you will like to come up front. And if anybody's taking pictures, you can get right up here to the front. Take pictures if you like. This is Anchorage Resolution number 2000, Assembly Resolution number 2012-119, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly supporting the National Association of Letter Carriers 20th Annual Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive on Saturday, May 12, 2012. Whereas the NALC Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive is held annually on the second Saturday in May and is the largest one-day food drive in the nation, with local efforts in more than 10,000 cities and towns across America, including Puerto Rico, Guam, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And whereas last year, the 2011 NALC Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive collected 70.2 million pounds of food, raising the total weight of donations received over the history of the drive to more than 1.1 billion, with a B, pounds. And whereas Saturday, May 12, 2012 will be the 20th anniversary of the NALC Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive, and with the help of numerous local postal employees and volunteers, letter carriers will again collect and deliver non-perishable food donations to local Feeding America food banks. And whereas Feeding America provides hunger support to 37 million Americans every year by distributing 3 billion pounds of donated food and grocery products annually to local food banks, serving 1 in 8 Americans who rely on these organizations. And whereas donations to the Food Bank of Alaska, generated by the Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive, are critical to the operation of the Food Bank of Alaska and its partner agencies, who provide food annually for an estimated 74,000 people statewide, and in Anchorage, 41,200 people, with 35% of the people in those households being children under 18 years old. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Municipal Assembly supports the 20th Annual National Association of Letter Carriers Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive on May 12, 2012, and applauds the cumulative success of the annual food drive on its 20th anniversary. Residents of Anchorage are encouraged to join in this community effort through their donations of non-perishable food left at mailboxes and in U.S. post offices around Anchorage and in Alaska. Passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this 8th day of May, 2012.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. I'd like to have Terry come up and give each of you a pin supporting the food drive. On behalf of the letter carriers, my name is Jim Raymond. I'm the local branch president for the letter carriers, representing letter carriers from Palmer all the way down to Homer. With me tonight, I have letter carriers who deliver in and around all of Anchorage with over 100 years experience out delivering mail and also picking up food for the last 20 years. Also, I've got with me Tom Ruggles, who is our food drive coordinator. While Tom might be a retired letter carrier only in name, once he retired, he went to work full-time at the Anchorage Gospel Rescue Mission. He is the kitchen manager and represents letter carriers greatly out in the community. The food that we will collect from the folks in Anchorage will help Tom's folks at the rescue mission. The other letter carriers I have with me, I have retiree Dick Brown, and then Maureen Berlin, Mary Birch, and Patrick Gauthier. Terry Mayberry is passing out the buttons. There are 10 organizations that will receive the food that we will collect this Saturday. We're hoping to break the 60,000 pound mark, but we ask all of you to, as you're going shopping this week, go out and buy something a little bit extra so you can put in your mailbox. If you have a post office box, we have containers at the post office that you can drop the food off. Not only food, but we will also take cash donations that we can give to the food bank. All the food that is collected goes to the food bank. The 10 partner agencies that work with us come down to the food bank. They sort the food for their own organizations. It's a great tradition. Letter carriers are a part of the community. We weave ourselves into the fabric of the community. We see each and every day how some of our customers suffer. And we feel really good at the end of the day knowing that the food that we're going to collect are going to help the folks that we deliver to. And we appreciate the proclamation given to us by the Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a couple of comments. Mr. Horniman.
Yes, I want to thank each and every one of you for your service to our country and our community. You know, that old adage is not lost. I mean, either rain or sleet or hail or snow, and you certainly keep the mail going. And I look forward to seeing the trucks out. Unfortunately, I know I'll be away from home working on a couple of functions that are going on in the community as well, but I'll leave my food out there for you.
Thank you.
Mr. Trainee.
Tom. Yeah. Are you going to be here to testify on the rescue missions issue tonight?
I will be here tonight, yes.
Okay, then I'll ask the question at that time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no more other questions, but I want to add to it as a former member of the Food Bank Board and know the service that this provides to the community, the need that's out there from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next item before us is 9B9, a resolution approving a contract to independently investigate the April 3rd, 2012 municipal election.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I just want to thank you for listening to your colleagues and also, most importantly, the citizens in this community who really wanted to see this happen, but that's not why I pulled it. Not really. Actually, I pulled it because we are approving a contract and we should have a fund certification on this document, and I'm sure that the CFO can verbally certify the funds. The fund number should be 101-110-3101, and through the budget process, the Assembly appropriated $40,000 for this purpose. And we just need to follow the rules like the rest of the documents that come before us, Mr. Chairman. And if you'd like to ask Ms. Mahoney to verbally certify these funds, which is appropriate, I think that that should happen, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gray Jackson. Ms. Mahoney, could we impose on you to do that for us?
Funds are certified.
Thank you, Ms. Mahoney.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Any other thing, Mr. Gray Jackson?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If not, please vote. That passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Gray Jackson. Item C2, Assembly Memorandum Number AM 281, recommendation of award to Roger Hickel Contracting Incorporated for 2012 Merrill Airport improvements, rehabilitate taxiway Q and apron Phase 3 for the municipality of Anchorage, Merrill Airport, and that's the ITB 2012 CO17 in the amount of $1,751,898.05.
Mr. Chairman, I have a potential conflict I'd like to declare before the discussion.
Please.
I run a small development company, and I'm currently under contract for a project that will benefit from this improvement. Although they're federal funds, I wouldn't want the potential appropriation to appear that I was taking care of my client.
And I will honor that, Mr. Starr, and suggest that you start moving quickly to the exit so we can vote on this and bring you back.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Horniman.
I just want to point out that I find it very refreshing. We've got the engineer's estimate at just under $2 million, and the high bid was 2.2, and the low bid just under 1.8. So I wish all of our bids were this close in its scope, and it'd make it much easier to follow. And I'm hopeful that we won't see in much, if any, in the way of cost overruns. But it looks like it's pretty tight bidding. So whoever wrote the work and the scope of the work apparently should be commended, because it looks like the numbers come in pretty tight. So good job.
Thank you, Mr. Horniman. Seeing no one else in the queue, please vote. That carries with 11 votes and one recused. Mr. Starr, will you please rejoin us? Our next item is Assembly Memorandum AM 266, confirmation of executive appointment, PC Chris Boucher, Fire Chief, Anchorage Fire Department. Mr. Trainee.
Mr. Chairman, we've got a Public Safety Committee meeting on the 16th. I'd like to have action postponed till we deal with this the 16th. It's always good when we have executives coming through before they're confirmed for the committees to have a discussion with the executive appointee, and then we'll deal with it when it comes back to us.
Mr. Trainee, I need a motion.
Move to extend to the next meeting and send it to the 16th Public Safety Committee.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? Ms. Johnston.
I guess to the administration, is there any problem with doing this?
Well, technically no, but that's the first time I've ever seen that happen. It's clearly not the standard procedure.
Mr. Chairman, it happened when the mayor was on here, chief of police appointment. I think the mayor even attended that committee meeting of the Public Safety Committee, dealing with the chief of police under Mayor Begich. It's commonplace, and the Assembly needs to do more often of this. When we have executive appointments being made, we need to see them before they're appointed and sworn in, sir.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Trainee. Any other comments?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could, it's hardly commonplace. I think that it's happened once in a decade.
Any other comments? Please vote.
Lots of times.
That motion passes 10-1. The next item before us is 9D9, Assembly Memorandum AM 255. This is Chong's Tokyo Garden number 4063, transfer of a restaurant eating place liquor license and restaurant designation permit, Midtown Community Council.
I don't think we pulled this.
No, we didn't. E1.
We didn't pull it.
We didn't pull this one?
I think we pulled Bravo 9, not Delta 9, Mr.
Oh, Bravo 9. Okay. Never mind. We'll move to the next item, which is 9E. It's a information memorandum number AM 29, Internal Audit Report 2012-04, Uniform and Entryway Rental Contract, Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility.
Move to accept.
Second.
Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I pulled this just because I wanted to talk briefly about the findings. Anyway, it was an interesting audit, and I'm just going to mention 3 of the findings that I thought were significant. And one was paying for missing items that were billed by the contractor before the required semi-annual inventory was conducted. Another was paying the contractor more for missing uniforms than the amount that was provided for in the contract. And the last one I wanted to mention was contract billing for entryway mats at a higher rate than the contract rate. And before I go on, I also want to say that the administration, AWW, their response to this audit was very, very good, and I'm quite comfortable with their response, and I have no intention of bringing this audit to the Audit Committee. I just wanted to mention it because I want to remind every other department within the municipality that has similar contracts, uniforms, mats, and I know there are several, please take heed and pay attention to what was discovered in this audit so that we don't have issues throughout the municipality on the same subject. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't need any comments from you, but thank you for stepping forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I do.
Mr. Starr.
I'm not sure who that is, but if they're with AWWU, are you? I'm sorry, I should know more of the folks running our city, but I don't. So maybe you could just tell me your name.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm Kurt Egelhofer. I'm the manager of operations and maintenance at the utility.
I appreciate that. I had some challenges with, and I appreciate Mr. Gray-Jackson for not bringing it to the committee from the perspective of further diligence due, but one of the employees had like 8 jackets. I may misquote that a little bit, but he was over excess in that, and then you had the photos in there, of course, with uniforms sort of laying around the office. And, it's sort of the appearance that as we look to efficiencies and gains, it may not mean much, but is there any intention to audit the current uniform issuance for the employees currently so we can kind of get our arms around what's out there?
Well, through the chair, first of all, I take full responsibility for everything in the audit.
Sure.
I also wanted to mention that we requested this audit last year because of the difficulty we were having with the contractor. And since the audit was done, we've put together a new procedure. We have already audited the uniforms that our people have. There are about 120 employees that the contract requires that we provide uniforms for. And we've already eliminated many of those uniforms. We are setting a policy for which work units get what uniforms, because if you work in the sewer, you might go through one a day. And it depends on what comes up, too. I mean, sometimes there isn't a lot of dirty work and they don't get used. So we have eliminated quite a bit of the excess inventory that we've had already. And we have requested an audit through purchasing by the vendor. And so far, the vendor over the past several months has not come forward to do that audit. So they are technically in default of their contract. And I think even today that purchasing has put them on notice of that.
Great. And then the policy when an employee leaves the service or departs or terminations, how are you going to handle that?
It's been added to the termination checklist.
And so if they can't provide them back, either their probation runs out, they're not retained, do they have to pay us back for those? Or
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I guess just the only other thing, and I have experience with uniformed drivers in the delivery business, and it's an odd one to find, but maybe the chief of police can affirm that the security of these uniforms is important so somebody doesn't misrepresent themselves as a worker and provide a theft or some other altercation that could look badly. So, we locked ours up, and so I guess just another method there. But it can't be a small contract. I think there's a lot of dollars involved here, so hopefully you can get your arms around that. And I really appreciate you having attention to it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing, hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. This completes our consent agenda, and we will now move into items under old business. The first item being 11A.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I just like the privilege of asking a question about an item that's already been passed on the consent agenda, if you don't object.
No, ma'am. Go ahead.
I just noted 9E2 on the executive appointments. The appointment for the Transportation Inspection Manager, is that Brent Fraser's position? I didn't know we lost him. I wish I had known. I would have written a resolution. He left fairly soon or fairly recently?
About approximately 2 months, ma'am.
Oh, man. All right. He was my go-to guy on taxi cab and bus things, so I'd like to meet this new person. Okay, thank you.
Feel free.
I will miss Brent Fraser.
Feel free to call him anytime.
Darn. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, Ms. Osiander. We're now under old business, item 11A, AM number 241. It's from the mayor. The subject is the Planning and Zoning Commission appointment of James A. Ferguson, P.E.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing Mr. Flynn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm supportive of this appointment. I met Mr. Ferguson during my indoctrination tour through Title 21, thanks to you-know-who over here. But I think some of you may have received an email from a person expressing some concern. And I asked specifically, are we worried about Mr. Ferguson, or are we worried about the overall makeup of the Planning and Zoning Commission? And the response was the overall makeup. So I guess just a gentle request of the mayor, as future vacancies at P&Z come up, it might be helpful to try and reach a little bit broader group of people. We seem to have a lot of development-oriented folks, and a little more perspective on the board might be helpful. That's all, Mr. Chairman. I urge support.
Thank you. Any other comments? Not, please vote. Ms. Osiander.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. I just want to say that I did have a conversation with Jim earlier and ask him, could he help expedite this process? And he absolutely said that he would. He's also valuable in the sense that he attended virtually every single committee meeting. And so he's not going to have to go through the what the heck is this phase.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he'll be a good addition.
Thank you, Ms. Osiander. Mr. Honeman.
I also met with Mr. Ferguson. Apparently, we frequent a couple of same restaurants together, and actually had a good conversation with him briefly. And I have no doubt his qualifications. I echo Mr. Flynn's concern to the administration to try to get a composition on all these committees that have good, broad-range public representation. So I'd urge that for future vacancies on this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In my 2.5 years of serving on the Title 21 committee, I did see Mr. Ferguson at practically every one, and I think he sent in a note from his teacher when he wasn't able to be present, which I appreciate. On the other hand, the very rare occasions that planning and zoning commissioners showed up at Title 21 committee meetings of the Assembly, it was extremely helpful to have their perspective present at the meeting. And may I suggest to the chair of the Title 21 committee that when we begin to meet again, as I assume we will at some point in this wrap-up process, we hope that commissioners will feel free to join us and explain themselves and some of the decisions that I'm sure that we'll have to be considering at that committee level. Obviously, Mr. Ferguson won't be able to participate in quite the same way once he is a commissioner as a member of the public and of the construction community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drummond. Anyone else? Seeing, hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. Mr. Ferguson, would you graciously join us at the podium?
Thank you, Mr. Hall. I'd like to thank everyone for confirming my appointment. I'd like to thank the mayor for appointing me. Can I answer any questions or anything?
I basically just have a comment as well. I've known Mr. Ferguson probably before the 35 years of the second 35 that Mr. Trainee was counting this evening, and you are indeed a treasure and an asset to this community, and truly appreciate your being willing to give of your time to serve on this type of a committee, because it takes a lot of work. So thanks, Jim.
Thank you, sir. My goal is to get it passed.
Mr. Honeman.
Mr. Ferguson. And just a challenge, I know that there's a lot of people in this community that are very concerned, particularly while this document in this chapter is within the Planning and Zoning Commission. So please make sure that all voices are heard. That's one challenge that I wish you could convey to the entire P&Z Commission, because it is very important. I know they'll get another whack here, but there's a lot of concern and a lot of buzz going on in the community, and I wish you well on this commission.
Last 10 days, I have been listening for about 45 minutes a day to the public testimony that's been given. And there's a lot of serious concern out there.
Yes.
And I'm hearing them all. I take 45 minutes and then I go off into something else.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Honeman. Mr. Birch.
Lastly, I just wanted to thank Jim for your willingness and engagement in this in the Planning and Zoning Commission. You'll be a great addition, and it's much appreciated. So, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Birch. Mr. Trainee.
Jim, thank you for taking this assignment. And you did talk to Debbie, I understand?
Yes, sir.
And you understand she can't leave the body till that passes?
Yes, sir. I mean, we had that
agreement. Sure, that's the deadline we're dealing with, is when she's leaving the body.
When I started, she had just got her learner's permit on this thing. When we started Title 21.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Jim, you may go. Thank you. Our next item is number 11B, which is AR 104, a resolution approving the letter of agreement between the municipality of Anchorage, the Public Employees Local 71, regarding implementation of the Kronos and SAP operating system. We do have a motion on this already, and Mr. Vikalis, I think you probably have the one answer that was asked in regards to any fiscal note attached to this.
None, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Starr.
Well, I'm challenged by the answer. When we reset the Family Medical Leave Act calculations, and I guess don't we compensate a certain level of in-kind pay or other time off compensation? So the answer that it doesn't have a financial impact is challenging.
Herb, can
you explain to me how that clause works?
Mr. Assembly Chair, Assembly members, my name is Herb Wilden. I'm Director of Labor Relations for the municipality. Regarding the FEMLA and the AFLA reboot, we did an analysis prior to discussions with the unions, and what it amounted to is it would have required a significant amount of programming time to set up the hours for the individuals. There were also some issues as far as validity of some of the data that we had available. So the decision was made that it would be better to reboot and start fresh than to try to carry over all old information. Now, that does not mean that everybody is automatically eligible for the reboot. They still have to meet the criteria of the 1,200 or 1,250 hours of FEMLA eligibility.
The Alaska Family Leave Act, in the change, it speaks to 480 for the federal program and then 720 for that. Is that cumulative then, or is that a combined?
No, it's concurrent. So if I'm on FEMLA, I'm on AFLA.
Only longer.
Yes.
Without getting you on the spot on that, was it a let's make a deal arrangement kind of thing, or how did the negotiations come out? Because it's, you know.
Realistically, we did not, it wasn't a true negotiation in the sense I give you A, you give me B. What we really did was during the analysis phase of Kronos and of SAP, it became apparent, and you'll see this in a future ordinance that'll be coming regarding changes to 3.30. It became apparent that there was some areas where we have a lot of routine, mechanical employee issues where we're keeping logs, and there was no way to automate them, so we looked at eliminating some of those. We also looked at what we could automate and put that into the system. There is an example would be SAP uses a day methodology. Much of our code is written with hours, weeks, months, so we converted that. We also found that in some cases there was some misinterpretation of the contract, which was detrimental to the municipality, so we included things like that in there to clarify that. It was a way of notification to the unions. So we combined many things, such as the ones that we did for AMEA and for the operating engineers, and now for 71.
Sort of the record keeping with the FMLA stuff, and perhaps obviously some employees probably took benefits of it, you know, and I guess that's where I come from, is that now in theory they're entitled to do it again. I would hope that there's sort of a spirit of good faith that says I've already, you know, had that. But as it relates to the other record keeping of just billable sick days and some of the other stuff, are we comfortable that we have that portion accurate for both purposes, the employee and the municipality side? Is that
we are comfortable that we are now collecting the data.
Sure.
There's still, obviously, Kronos is new in its implementation. We're still going through the final phases with APD, IAFF, and transit. But as we get more familiar with the system and as the people become more familiar with it, the data collection is also getting more accurate.
And I'll have to look at my ability to intercede and understand grievances as they become posted on that. But if you see a trend that we haven't appropriately addressed it in grievances against the municipality are formally filed, will you let us know in some sort of report?
I prepare a monthly report for employee relations that I could forward to the Assembly if the Assembly wants me to forward that report.
It'd be helpful to know if there's anything from an implementation of new technologies that's not being handled appropriately in the grievance process is going up, or grievance claims and requests are going up. I would like to know.
Speaking for all the unions, most of them have declined. There is one that we have had an increase, but it's more holding to task than anything else.
Great.
And they're not grievances that I consider, for the most part, very significant as far as monetary cost goes. There are a couple like that, but there always are.
Great. Well, thank you for being attentive to it and speaking clearly to the matter.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have one other question. Mr. Honeman.
And not to do specifically with 71, in fact, probably not at all. This begs the question, I was reading through the Kronos and SAP. There are, I'm assuming, some status employees exempt or non-FLSA, non-reps. Are they held to the same standards, the Kronos, or the 5 minutes early, the 5 minutes out? And if we can get a list of those, the number and the list of those folks, it would be helpful too. I don't necessarily need the names, but how many positions that might be exempted. Or are they all held to the same Kronos SAP time clocking?
The only ones that I am aware of that are exempt from completing the time clock, which is what you're referring to, the punch-in, are the executive group.
All executives?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay. So the non-rep, or the exempt FLSA employees are also with time clocking?
Yes.
Okay.
And one of the things that we've been trying to achieve with these letter of agreements with the union is to standardize the language in the contracts, especially on the FEMLA and AFLA side, so that when we're done with this process, hopefully we will have one language, we will have one set of questions on the Muniverse, and therefore if I, as an assembly, it doesn't matter which union I'm in or whether I'm non-rep executive, I can go to the Muniverse and get most of my questions answered. We also have standardized the FEMLA-AFLA department. There are two individuals in it, and that means we will have consistency throughout the municipality when we're done with this process, whereas in the past there may have been some inconsistent practice.
That's all our questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please vote. That passes unanimously. We're now at that time of the evening for our public testimony. Mr. Dennis Walker on aircraft registration tax. Mr. Walker. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. And my name is Dennis Walker. And recently, back in February...
Could you spell your second name? It's
Walker, common spelling, W-A-L-K-E-R.
Thank you.
And back in February, I had the opportunity of becoming an aircraft owner. And I also found out through a letter in the mail that I also became a special class of citizen in Anchorage, where I'm required to pay more to help out with snow plowing, the subsidizing bus rides. I believe those are all things that come out of the general budget. And I kind of fail to see why that this registration fee is necessary when we already pay fuel taxes, tie-down fees, property taxes. So, I mean, I have no problem paying for things that I consume and use, but, you know, for this to be really called a registration fee, too, it needs to be called a tax, because it's not a registration. I mean, the FAA does a great job of keeping track of airplanes, and that's how the city found out that I had become an aircraft owner, is they went to the FAA's database, searched, and found out I'm a new owner. So sent me a letter saying they wanted $75, and you know, I just don't feel like I'm getting anything aviation related for that $75, especially when my airplane is parked on Elmendorf Air Force Base. There's about 20 of us that park on Elmendorf, and then there's probably about another 20, 25 out on 6 Mile. And I already feel that, like I said, we're paying through other fees what we're using, so I just don't really feel that it's, what am I getting for my $75, other than it's going to the general fund. It's not going to anything aviation related or earmarked specifically for aviation, so that's kind of my concern with this whole process, and that the city is duplicating a process that's already being done well by another government agency.
Okay. Just a moment. Mr. Starr?
Well, I will just add that it was one of the fees that I was able to successfully keep from going up.
Thank you.
So in that regard, I think we're making some strides, and perhaps the trade show and some of those other ones will spur on some aviation investment by the city, and maybe we can redirect some of those dollars. I could only hope for that. So I'm sensitive to it. I think those on the body are, and we appreciate you bringing your views to us. And going through that. I know it's your first time, as you said, speaking to the microphone and interfacing with government.
Yeah.
We're not all that bad. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming in, Mr. Walker. I want to handle 3 quick items here that we need to move forward under continuing business.
Mr. Chairman, I move to combine the continued public hearing on items 13A, B, and C.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. We have a second. Okay. Could you make a motion for me, Mr. Flynn? Yeah, we already did. We need to continue it over pending.
Okay, but we have to have the public hearing portion first.
Okay.
We move to continue.
Thank you. Anyone here to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none. Back before us, Mr. Flynn.
For your request, Mr. Chairman, I'll move to continue the public hearing on these 3 items to June 5.
Second.
Okay. Any objection? It carries unanimously.
Could you explain why, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I can. Pending the recount, the hand recount, we've done a certification of the election, but we need to get the hand count resolved, because if for any reason that should make a difference in the outcome of the election, that would impact the sale of the bonds. Mr. Trainee.
That was in the motion I made, sir, the night we dealt with that, pending the outcome of the
right.
count.
Exactly. Okay. Very good. Anyone opposed? If not, we'll show that that carries unanimously. And with that, we're...
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It'd be okay with the indulgence of you and the body to change the order of the day to perhaps take up that smoking issue with the public hearing and the intent to postpone for another meeting.
Sure. That would be fine.
Trying to look at the item number here. It looks like move to change the order of the day to take up 14A.
Second. Okay. Please vote.
Just to postpone?
Negative. This is just to move it up to the agenda, open the public hearing.
Roger that.
Right.
My intention would be to continue the public hearing.
That carries unanimously. Mr. Starr?
Well, can you open the public hearing?
Yes, I shall. We have before us AO number 41, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code Chapter 16.65 to add a non-transferable limited exception for a private club licensed as of July 1, 2007 for the sale of alcoholic beverages and in current operation. Anyone to testify?
Hi, my name is Cameron Perez-Verdia. I'm just asking a question. Is this to postpone it?
We are going to continue it, and we will have public testimony with continuing it. So you will have an opportunity to testify again.
This evening.
No, we're carrying it over to the next meeting.
That's what I was. That's
Yes,
the question.
to the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you. I just had that question.
You're welcome. Anyone else to testify? Anyone at all?
Sir, my name is Mary Ann Green, and I just have a question. I
Yes.
came here to testify regarding AO 2012-37, and I'm wondering, are you going to discuss that this evening, or since you've moved on to the next item on the agenda?
That's item 13D, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. No, we will be coming back to that item.
All right.
We changed the order of the agenda to deal with this one quickly.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else to testify? Seeing and hearing none. Mr. Starr.
Move to continue the public hearing to our next meeting of May 22nd.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing, hearing none, please vote. That passes 10-1 to carry it over. And with that, we're going to break for our dinner. We'll be back at 6:30. I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Anchorage Assembly back to order. Mr. Trombley?
I'd like to move to change the order on the agenda. I'd like to move 14B and deal with that now.
Anyone object? Seeing, hearing none, we will have before us item 14B, which is AR 113, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating a contribution of $206,671,000 from the area-wide general CI. Thank you. This item is now before us. Anyone wish to testify? Anyone at all?
Delta.
Delta. Okay. D?
14B, Delta.
Okay, if I got the wrong item. It is. It is. Okay, I beg your pardon. We will have before us AR number 115, a resolution appropriating a contribution of $129,000 approved in the 2012 general operating budget from the Anchorage Bowl Parks and Recreation Service Area, Fund 161, to the Anchorage Bowl Parks and Recreation Service Area Capital Improvement Projects Fund. Thank you. This item is now before us. Anyone wish to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this item is before us. Mr. Trombley.
Move to approve. Second. I just had a question for John, or Mr. Rada. Sorry. And it's actually not necessarily regarding this issue, but it does deal with parks. And I had a chance to talk with Mr. Rada earlier and just wanted to get an update on the Frisbee Golf Park downtown.
Okay. Through the chair, Mr. Trombley, we have proceeded as we had discussed at the last assembly meeting. I'm sorry. Is it better? We had this discussion at the last assembly meeting. We did follow up with a public forum last Wednesday night at the Lydia Selcraig Chalet. Assemblymember Honeman was also present. We had 31 people in attendance, a wide variety of individuals. It turned out to be a very beneficial session. A lot of venting, yet a lot of collaboration was the end result. We also had 2 Parks and Recreation Commission members present, and they spoke to the audience at the end. The focus of that was to give them an opportunity to readdress myself personally. We did have one other staff member present. But the net result of that was that they understand that the environmental issues and the remediation for the park, are of prime importance. We can't just continue to let areas degrade. And we have already fenced it off. But in regards to the future, we wanted them to step up as a unit. And they've taken it upon themselves. There's, I don't get on Facebook and all that other kind of stuff. I'm sorry, I don't have time, but other people do inform me that they, in fact, have been meeting, and they're preparing to come forward to the Parks and Rec Commission on Thursday night with their proposed solutions to how they can become better stewards of the park area per se, as well as how to minimize some of the other conflicts that we've had to deal with. I can also tell you that in the course of the last week, we have received a tremendous number of additional emails, and it is full spectrum. Everything that people have been saying about the course being closed, it's true, it's closed. We have heard about, I've heard more personally about people asking that the course remain closed. Actually, a couple of former members of the administration I happened to run into on Saturday. So, and we've had reports of injuries that have never been dealt with. So it truly is full spectrum. I mean, a lot of people don't like the conflict. A lot of people want to continue to play golf. So the forum was excellent. It was a good opportunity. Again, Mr. Honeman might want to speak to it. But I think the focus that we're trying to bring out of this whole process is, one, take care of what you have, be conscientious, be a good steward, take responsibility for what you're going to do and ask for. And likewise, that goes for me and my staff as well. So we're trying to do this in a collaborative way. We spent many months last year dealing with it, and we're going to re-engage with this group, and hopefully they've got one or two spokespersons rather than the masses, because it's really not effective that way. It's just a hue and cry. So we've encouraged them to step up, and we'll be listening to them with one or two key people. They're going to speak for the group. That meeting's at 6 o'clock. Esplanade Rec Center on Thursday night.
That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Rada.
Mr. Horniman.
Yeah, in fact, I wanted to comment on that. If we hadn't talked about it, I was planning on using my comments at the end. But it was a very well-run meeting. I appreciated the opportunity to be able to go out, and there were like 3 different functions that night I had to get to, and so I was in for a little bit, and I regret that I wasn't at the very beginning of the meeting, but I understand it was probably a little more heated at first, but it seemed to be very well-run and very good dialogue going on. And one of the things I did take away, 2 things that really impacted me was, and it didn't seem that the group, there wasn't per se, there was one association I think represented, but there was a call to try to get more organization from the people that were there and maybe perhaps the users at the disc golf. One of the things I said was, hey, I'm going to university area. If somebody wants to come by along and kind of explain their position, they say, oh, we're not ready yet. And the only thing I have to say is, if you're listening at home or if you're here and you're passionate about this issue, is it's never too early to start dialoguing with these community councils, particularly because most of them won't meet over the summer months when you're out probably playing or wanting to play. So if you're planning on, I think there were at least 4 or 5 potential locations for more courses, these disc courses. And I think that's a pretty good, wise plan to try to keep from one area being beaten down. The other thing that I took away was fairly impactful was, unlike a park, and maybe perhaps we could have this into a park setting, but unlike a park where there's park hours that says, park hours close, I think, 10 or 11 o'clock till 6 in the morning. The bike trails, the coastal trail, and the bike trails aren't necessarily posted with hours. And so if you have a course that runs parallel to a bike trail, there is one of the conflicts. And then lastly, one of the things that I've been hearing lately, particularly through Public Safety Committee, Mr. Rada, is the off-leash dog park areas that are also near bike trails. We're starting to see a lot more encounters, not just with the disc golfers or golfers, but the dogs that people are running along on the trails, and also near the off-leash trails where they're encroaching, if you will, and it can be catastrophic for bike riders and joggers and such as well. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horniman. There are no more questions, Mr. Rada.
All right, thank you.
Seeing and hearing no one else in the queue, please vote. That item passes unanimously. We are now back to item 13D, which is AO number 37, an ordinance of the Anchorage Assembly amending the zoning map and providing for rezoning B3 General Business District and R3 Multiple Family Residential District to PLI Public Lands and Institution District for pre-subdivision lots 2, 3 South 1/2, 3 North 1/2, 4 Plat P366, and Walcott subdivision, lots 1 and 9, plat 70-77, containing approximately 180 or 1.85 acres, generally located north of East Tudor Road and west of Wright Street. This is before us for public hearing. Anyone to testify?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Gregory Fisher, Fisher. I represent the Anchorage Gospel Rescue Mission on a pro bono basis. With me is the Reverend David Williams.
Williams, Williams.
Thank you.
Briefly, sir, this has been about a 6 or 7 year odyssey. We've been working hard at trying to bring the mission into compliance with code. The mission has been located at its present location since about 1987. The area right now is zoned B3. Homeless shelters are not allowed in a B3 area. We've been a legal non-conforming use since 1992. If the current shelter was ever damaged, for example, as a result of fire or flooding, we could lose our legal non-conforming use status. We've worked hard over the past 6 or 7 years with the guidance and instruction from the community councils, from the mayor and his staff, from assembly members L.B. Gray Jackson and Dick Traney. We've worked hard at improving community relations, and we think we've done that. The Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously approved our rezoning request. 2 conditional use permits were also approved. Those are not before the Assembly tonight. The administration also recommends approval. The University Area Community Council on May 2nd additionally passed a resolution approving the rezoning request. I hope that made it to your packets. If not, we'll get you copies of that. We would like to ask the Assembly please to pass the rezoning request for the reasons outlined by the Planning Department's packet, which is comprehensive. Our request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the code's rezoning standards. If there are no questions, we'd like to reserve the balance of our time to address any public comments that may arise. Naturally, if anybody has questions now, we'll do our best to answer those.
I see no one in the queue.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else? We got back to you.
Yes, sir. My name is Mary Ann Green, and I just wanted to say that I support the Rescue Mission's request, and I hope that you will approve the rezoning for them. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no questions. Anyone else to testify? Anyone at all?
My name is Mike Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R.
Good evening.
I'm a elder at Baxter Road Bible Church. Baxter Road Bible Church has supported the Rescue Mission with a small monthly amount for many, many years. We do that because we believe that they fulfill the biblical mandate to reach out and care for the poor. And I note in the paper in the last few days an article or two about homeless camps and the fact that the shelters of Brother Francis and Beans Cafe have been overloaded. And the Rescue Mission provides that service at no cost to the municipality or the state or any other government agency. And this approval of this ordinance will enable them to increase their capacity for helping the poor. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Miller. There are no questions. Anyone else? Good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening. Slow. I just want to commend the Gospel Mission for the good work they do. If you've ever visited there, I'm sure you've seen the residents are just courteous and real gentlemen. And I sincerely hope you approve their zoning request.
Yes, ma'am. Could we get your name before you sit down, please?
Irma Doggett, D-O-G-G-E-T-T.
Thank you for coming down. Anyone else?
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. My name is Christopher Brent Downs, and I represent my brothers in the discipleship program at the Anchorage Gospel Rescue Mission. They're here, if you want to stand up. And I'd like to say a few things. The mission offers people the chance and time to work on themselves to make changes in their lives. All that join our program have different but serious issues to work on. Our life problems vary, but Jesus Christ sees us through it all together. I believe in the Anchorage Gospel Rescue Mission because what it has done for me. I've been given the opportunity to live in a safe environment free from drugs and alcohol. to attend classes to better myself, the time to spiritually heal, all the while experiencing the joy of giving back by serving our homeless community. I see God working in the lives on those that stay, work, and visit the mission every day. We need this place. I need this place. And we sincerely thank all the generous individuals that donate their time and money to our worthy cause. It is because of those that donate to us that make all that we do possible. Thank you for your time. Let God's will be done. Amen.
Thank you. Mr. Horniman has a question.
Mr. Downs, right here.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for being a representative of the membership that are here tonight. And I just have, I know that there are some constituents of mine and people that I've gone to the University Area Community Council meetings and such, and there's some concern, not so much what goes on site. I think good works are done at the rescue mission. It's what happens when people leave the mission, whether it's in the morning, after the night. I believe you guys are supposed to leave during the daytime. Is that correct? To go seek work, or?
Sir, I'm a cook at the mission, and I'm not just a guest. I live there, and I spend full time. I don't leave during the day.
But the rest of the people staying there, residents, I guess, temporary guests, are there. They leave and are encouraged to work or find some training or something else.
They have to go and try to find jobs, and they leave for most of the day unless it's really cold.
How's that monitored, just out of curiosity? Or is it? Like when they leave your property, when they leave past the sidewalk on Tudor Road?
You would have to refer to the Reverend David Williams, because I don't know too much about how it's monitored.
How did it work for you?
I've never stayed there as a homeless guest. I came to the program. I researched the program, and I came to the program. So I've never had the opportunity to live and stay there at night and then go out during the day and be monitored if that happens.
Okay.
So.
Very good. I'll ask the question later. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Anyone else?
Hi, Simile. My name's E.J. Larrabee II. And by the way, congratulations, Mayor Dan, on your victory, and my condolences, Mr. Honerman.
Would you spell your last name for us, please?
Larrri, V as in victory, E-E.
Thank you.
And I've lived off of Falker Street for 19 years. I've seen a lot. I love Jesus. I love God. I love all the angels. But these aren't angels I'm seeing at night. All of you are spending lots of tax dollars. It's a funnel. Lots of tax dollars at the park, where these people that are rejected, or for some one reason or the other, they're going into the park and they're camping out, they're getting drunk, they make noise. I mean, every summer, I see it spring, summer, and fall. And something's got to be done. I don't want to see this magnet to deviancy get bigger. I want to see it get smaller. I want to see it move out of Anchorage. The reason why is there's families now that are living there. When I first moved there, mostly all singles. But because of economics, there's families with kids, women, elderly. They're moving into this area. And these people that can't pass the sobriety test, where do they go? They're in overflow. I'll tell you where they go. All over that area. But they mainly go around Campbell Creek Park. And this is where all your tax dollars, or a lot of your tax dollars, are being spent. Not all your tax dollars. I'm sure there's other places they go. But see, they see this oasis with beds and everything. That's good. That's good. But it's in the wrong location now. It's like a pair of pants. When you first get them, they fit great. But you put on more weight, things change, you get older, you can't fit in there anymore. That's what this place is. It's a pair of pants, a social pair of pants. They have, they're using old or ancient values or something, because these people are coming there, they're drawn there. In my area where I get to get on the balcony and watch them at night. I mean, it's like a zoo off of Falker Street. And if you don't believe it, I'm sure you do. If you don't believe it, go there. Go there at night. Go there at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. You'll see where the people are camped out. You'll hear them. Now, the cops are doing everything they can. But it ain't working. We're just spending a lot of money. That place needs to get to another place. Maybe the city should buy an area for them, but out of that area. Because there's too many families, too many kids, too many women, and these guys are drunk, or on drugs, or whatever, and they're looking at this. That's not good.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions for you. Mr. Honeman?
Thank you for coming out.
I
appreciate your information.
By the way, you did an excellent job.
Thank you. Appreciate your information. And if you remember, I was just asking a question specifically of a person that I thought was a resident as well. I, too, am concerned about the area surrounding, the neighborhood surrounding, and particularly near the park.
Oh, yeah.
And I know we can do better. We should do better
Well, you're
on keeping up
trying.
on it. And I
It's
know
a losing battle.
there's a problem in our community. I recognize that. So we need to make sure we address those problems as we encounter them. But thank you for the information, and I intend to follow up with trying to find out more about how we can better resolve that.
Thank you. By the way, there was a recent commotion there Sunday night.
At the park?
Yeah. Okay. Sunday night and Monday morning. Yeah, there was a lot of blue and red lights flashing around right there.
Okay, Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I want to thank you very much for coming out.
Oh, my pleasure. You're wonderful. I hear you on the radio, them talking about
I haven't been on the radio, but let me finish.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so anyway, first off, the problem that we have in our community is not just a one-person or entity problem. It's a problem for all of us, and we have to work together to make this situation better. And we all have to participate.
Exactly.
In that very area that you're talking about 2.5 years ago, well, actually longer than that, when I first got elected in 2008, I had a constituent who lives where you live, complaining with the same issues that you're talking about right now. And guess what we did? We started a committee. And it's called TBOP, and it stands for Take Back Our Parks. And we've been meeting every month, the third Monday of every month, and we have folks from the municipality, Parks and Rec, people that live in the community, somebody from the police department, and it is wonderful. We have jackets, we have hats that were donated, and guess what our mission is? I'm going to read this to you. Our mission is to encourage Campbell Creek Park area residents and businesses to join the Take Back Our Park community group, creating workable plans, joining efforts, and taking action to provide safe, clean, and enjoyable park conditions. And you know what? I would like for you to come to our next meeting. It's the 21st of this month, and it's in the Transit Building, and I always buy lunch for everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Hey, can I ask one question? Do you think you're winning the battle?
We've made so many improvements with help from the municipality. I mean, if you look back there, that fence that used to cause a lot of problems, the tennis court's gone down. It's been paved. We got some money through the municipality to make improvements back there. There have been trees that were cut. We've made lots of improvements.
And they migrated across the bridge.
Thank you, Ms. Gray Jackson. We have no more questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. You all have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Anyone else?
See if I can see. I'm Barbara Garner, Garner. Before I start, I want to ask if you received a large packet that was presented at Planning and Zoning last winter, where we have many comments. I had a letter in there. It's not here tonight. And if you don't have it, then I need to read it to you, but I'd hope not to be able to do that. So I need to know if you have it. From Barbara Garner. It was dated November.
Not to my knowledge. No, ma'am.
Yes, I have it.
Do you?
It's in the packet, page, it's listed 499 on the lower right-hand corner.
I live in the Walcott subdivision, Lot 4. I've lived there since 1967, before it was even a subdivision. It became a subdivision in 1970. So, with that said, I support the B3 rezoning for the mission. I do not support the addition of the R3 lots. And the reason is several. For example, and I'm also wondering if the senior planner is here, because I object to some of the thoughts that he put in the comments with regard to the UMed area. There has not been an update until now. It started about 2 weeks ago, if that. There was an amendment relating to East 40th Avenue and some land changes that had to go on there. It resulted with the closing of Wright Street, which had had a lot of problems with people from the mission going back and forth there. The gist of all this is, if you listen to what I have to say, and having suffered, I have a file so thick at home, a collection of everything all these years. There have been many unpleasant things that have occurred because the mission was allowed to come there as a church. Nobody let anybody know that it was going to have 100 men staying there overnight. None of us ever knew. Now here we are, 22 years later. 22 years later. It's not good when Channel 2 comes to your doorway and says, "What do you think about the shelter going in behind your house?" We knew nothing about it. But right now, we'd not like to see our residential area included in this PLI zoning. I agree with David and what he's doing. He's made some tremendous changes there. They're very helpful. His New Life program is amazing. And as I say in my document here, I wish everybody in the city who have alcohol problems and they don't have jobs could go to David's program. I heard the one gentleman say he didn't go to the mission, and yet he's still in that program, or he's working as a cook there. David would like to see the shelter continue because that's where he gets the people in order to participate in the New Life program. However, we as residents do not want the R3 lots to go into the PLI. This is our residential area. Please do what the Planning and Zoning Commission said. They had findings. They presented them to you. We hope you will look at those.
Thank you. We have a question. Mr. Horniman?
Well, it was there. I think you summarized fairly well, Barbara. And was there anything since November that's come to your attention since you wrote this letter that you needed to add, or did you get that in there in your testimony?
I think I've written everything in there. Over the winter, I can't answer anything that's really negative going on because this man does an amazing job. We have to be grateful that David Williams came into the mission's life because he's made it so much better for the neighborhood. They help us with Volker Park flower bed. We'll be planting flowers the first part of June. And these are the people from the New Life program. That is a good program. Let it happen. But the shelter part of it, that's a little scary. And to have to take 2 residential lots and turn them into PLI, because we know that PLI has a bazillion things, excuse my term, that can happen in PLI. That's not good for those of us who are residents just one lot away.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Horniman? Ms. Osiander?
You confused me just a little bit
I'm sure.
when you said follow the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation.
They sent it to you with findings. They heard our testimony. They could not make changes with what was requested, but they sent it to you with findings. What those were, I never saw in print, but that was the end of that particular hearing.
I was looking at, it's page 437, and there are 4 findings, or 3 findings here. And I guess I don't see anything that's different. So I'll keep looking through the packet to see if there's anything else from the Commission, and I will ask that question later.
If I may, their point was they heard things during our testimony that they did not know, and that's why they could not make changes with what was proposed. That's why they wanted to pass it along to you so that you would know.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have no one else in the queue.
Thank you.
Anyone else to testify? Anyone at all? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Carol Haller, and I'm a Christian. And I've had many friends who are alcoholics. They become friends to me because they needed help. And I took them over to Baptist Temple, where they have a program there. It's called Celebrate Recovery. Alcoholism and addictions is very rapid. And like Charlotte from the Rescue Mission said, it's all the younger ones now. We do need places to help these people, because our community is not going to change unless we do have these type of places for these people to go. And I have a son that struggled and still struggling, and it ruins people's lives, not just the individual that's alcoholic, but the families and friends. So I just want to plead with you to really consider allowing this to happen for the rescue mission so that they can reach out to more people. Now these people, I feel sorry for them, with these people, the ones that don't have homes, that they're coming into the parks and that. Now since that campground downtown somewhere was closed, I live on 36 in Arctic, and we even see it there on 36, which we have not. So what has happened, these people have migrated further in to Midtown. It is a problem, and we need places to help some of these people very desperately. So I want you each to search your heart and really consider to help this rescue mission, which has been faithful for 21 years. And they have grown, but the needs have grown even larger. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Could I get you to spell your last name for us, please?
Haller.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have no questions. Anyone else wish to testify?
Tom Ruggles, Ruggles. And I'm the kitchen manager at the Anchorage Gospel Rescue Mission, and I've been working there now on my third year, and I also help take care of the donations. And one of the things we do put out is 3 meals a day, and we're up to 200 to 300 meals at that time. And what the extra beds will help us with is to be able to supply a bed for those that are trying to change their lifestyle, and that they are able to have a job, that they don't have a place to stay, they are homeless, but they are holding down a job. And so these extra beds will help those men who are trying to change their lifestyle. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. I have no questions for you.
Sure.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Anyone else to testify? Anyone at all? Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Jeremiah Banks. Last name is Banks.
Thank you.
Can you lift the microphone just a little bit, sir? Lift it up just there. You go.
Okay. Sorry.
Could barely hear you.
Okay, is it better?
Better.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make a few quick points. I am in favor of letting this rezoning go forward for the mission. I believe it's a private funds, public benefit situation. The funds are coming from people like me that want to help out. I have plenty of people standing on corners asking for help. I don't want to help them stay addicted to the substance abuse, and I like to have a place here in Anchorage where I can help them in a real way that's lasting and not just helping them get their fix for the night. Another thing is I do live in East Anchorage, and it's getting to that time of year now when the snow goes where I bike from East Anchorage right through that area, through those areas by the creek, because I work in Midtown. And I do see that there are some people that hang in that area, the people that look like they might have camped there, but to be honest with you, I also see them when I cut through Cuddy Park right here next to the library. I don't think that it's just isolated to that park. They're all over in Anchorage, people that don't have places to live that are camping in the woods. So I don't think it's just happening there, what I've seen. Another thing, the rescue mission has been there for 40 years. There may be a few people that were there before they moved in, but most of the people moved in next to the rescue mission, not the other way around, and I think this should be considered. And the other thing is, in this country we believe in giving people a second chance, and some of these people, maybe it's more than a second chance, but I believe that if we don't have some place to help them, you're going to see the death rates go up in the parks. We've seen some of that lately where people have died there in the winters. I believe those numbers will go up if there's not a chance to reach out to them. And then people say, well, not this place. The only question I have is, well, what place? Because if you move them somewhere else, the people there are going to say, well, not here. And then there'll be no place left except for them to be on their own. So those are just a few of the thoughts that I had, and I hope you'll take them into consideration.
Thank you for coming down. We have no questions.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else at all?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fisher again. Assemblymember Honeman had a question on the monitoring the working delegates, and Reverend Williams can answer that.
Real quickly, if I could just correct something Ms. Garner said. She puts a lot of store in me, and I appreciate that, but I'm a man under authority, so anything that went on at the rescue mission had to be approved by our executive director. I appreciate you giving me credit, but it's certainly no credit. The Anchorage Rescue Mission caters more to the working homeless than the chronic homeless. The reason we're doing that is because we have such a limited number of beds. So our process is as we have this segment of working homeless in Anchorage, they have on file at the rescue mission from their employer proof that they're working, and they call in and reserve a bed. At the end of a normal call-in period, we might have 5, maybe 7 beds available for the general homeless population. So a lot of times if you see a crowd of people there at the mission, they're vying for that 5 to 7 beds, and what we're hoping, and I would like to also say that this is not an expansion. We are not expanding our services. We are just trying to reclaim those beds that we lost in 2005. So the hope is that by reclaiming those beds, we can then reduce that number of turnaways that unfortunately we don't have a bed for.
Okay, thank you.
If I might.
I got a couple ahead of you, Mr. Harneman. Mr. Birch.
Thank you for coming down this evening, and I really wanted to commend you for the great program that you operate. We had some testimony earlier about the need for the 2 parcels of R3 land immediately north of the mission property, and the Planning and Zoning Commission in their minutes here on page 437 of our package indicates that the R3 lots adjacent to the north are not needed for or desired by the petitioner or by the commission in approving this to be rezoned to anything other than R3. And I guess the question I would have is how did that boundary get expanded to those residential properties to the north if it's not needed or wanted by the people that are petitioning? I mean, it seems to me like you ought to just cut it off there, and those 2 lots should remain residential as a buffer for the people who have lived in the neighborhood for a long time.
Mr. Birch, thank you. Yes, no objection. The reason Wolcott 1 and 9, the two R3 lots were included, was because under code we had to have a minimum of 1.75 acres, and the pre-subdivision lots 2, 3, and 4 did not exceed 1.75 acres, but we have no objection to carving those out and not rezoning those, leaving those as R3, and just having the B3 lots rezone PLI.
Okay, I was looking at a Google map of the area, and it looks like there's some access that comes in from the north through one of those properties. Is there some access that currently exists from the north through those?
There's like a cul-de-sac with a fence off of Wolcott 1, but that's blocked off. There's no access directly down from there.
Okay. Great. And then the other is kind of a anecdotal issue, but we had some testimony and there's some concerns voiced about some of your residents, not going to the crosswalks, and obviously the worst thing could happen is with a high-speed road there on Tudor is pedestrian interaction with a vehicle which doesn't turn out well. How do you do anything internally, just in the mission there to, encourage people to, hoof it up to the, crosswalk, or I just don't know what you do internally there to
I'd like to defer to Reverend Williams, but if I may, sir, just make one brief observation, is that I think we get tagged with a lot that isn't even really on our ticket, so to speak, and the odd part about working with Reverend Williams and Reverend Bettis is they don't mind that. They actually have welcomed the criticism even when it's unfair, because they take it as the type of thing that they can work from to improve their community relations. But as far as specifically what they do on the traffic pedestrian aspect, Reverend Williams?
What we do is we try to educate our population that's against the law. And recent changes in Tudor Road there has taken away the passing lane or the turning lane and has put a divider there, which has helped the situation greatly. And we have to own our stuff, and at certain times of the day, certainly the biggest majority of those crossing illegally are those that are using our services. But it's an ongoing thing that we're trying to educate them, and and it's something that we're aware of, and we're trying to make them aware of this against the law to do so.
Fair enough.
And very dangerous as well.
Thank you very much. And I've gotten a lot of very positive feedback, emails, and communications on the services you're providing, and we'll continue to provide it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Horniman.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank you for getting back up and explaining. I intended, once the public testimony was closed, to ask a few follow-up questions. First of all, the question is, when you first opened your doors, and remembering I was a young patrolman back in those days, and I was hauling folks to locations and actually taking some calls for service at that location, you actually had a couple of rooms for families, women, families. Is that still the case?
Unfortunately, no. We don't have our building does not support that type of service. We are a unaccompanied adult male and female shelter. We have a women's dorm and men's dorm.
Okay. I remember you had just a small room or two, just for like one or two families, and that was it. And I remember that from my recollection days. Just wanted to double check. Secondly, as to some neighbors' concerns, you heard the one gentleman talking about looking over his balcony and out at the park and concern. Have you undertaken a little ownership, personal pride from the rescue mission with some of your residents to try to take back the park, so to speak? Have you been participating with Ms. Gray Jackson and the community's meetings there for that?
Yes, sir. We have actually been a sitting member of T-BOP since its conception. We are an accountability shelter, and we are stringent about that there is a social decorum that we're all held to as members of the community here in Anchorage. And we believe that if you set high standards, that our guests will meet those standards. So, if you urinate on a neighbor's fence, we consider that doing it to our fence, and there are consequences. And those can range from short-term suspension of services from 7 days to 30 days to a year. We always give the person an opportunity. If there's a behavior problem that someone in the community has identified to us, we go to that person and we tell them that there's a problem. And then it's their choice to change the behavior. If they choose not to change the behavior, then there's consequences. And then they have to suffer those consequences. We have people in the community who still come to that area, although they've been denied services at the rescue mission for quite some time because of their refusal to behave correctly in the community. We're also a no-tolerance shelter. You cannot come into our shelter and use any of our services unless you can blow 3 zeros on the breathalyzer. The reason being is because the two main things we offer at the rescue mission is a relationship with Jesus Christ, and the second thing is safety. You have to have a safe place to come, especially if you're trying to change your behavior. So if we allow those who are intoxicated into our building, 1 minute they might be fine, the next minute there's violence. We haven't had a single outbreak of violence since we instituted that policy. Also, believe it or not, the happy drunks are the problem because they want to go around hugging everybody and nobody wants to be hugged. So we try to provide a very safe environment for those coming to us for help.
Well, if I might, and again, I was going to save it for later, but I would just challenge you to be, maybe perhaps consider, I don't know, hot chocolate night or something where you actually get with your group of residents into the park in the evening hours and encourage or discourage people from loitering and hanging out and doing some of those untoward things. You know, sometimes bringing a cup of hot chocolate to someone who doesn't have a place to stay, but giving them a little warmth and a little fellowship and basically say, hey, you know, you're bringing us bad names by being here, recognizing it's like putting your finger in a water pool. It's going to displace it somewhere else, but maybe perhaps to your benefit in this case. So,
yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Starr.
I don't need to get too descriptive on it, but where do you get your funding for your programs and your building maintenance and some of that?
We are 100% funded by the community of Anchorage.
Great. Thank you. That's all I need to know.
There are no other questions. Anyone else to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this item is before us.
Move to approve.
Second.
Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about this because everything's been said already. It really has. And I'm just so pleased with the work that Mr. Williams has done to get us to this point, which includes working with the community and getting support from the community to continue and to do what he has been doing and to continue helping people in our community that really, truly need the help. And I don't want to talk too much more because it brings tears to my eyes, frankly. But anyway, with that said, I'd like to move to add a new section, Section 2, which reads, there shall be a special limitation limiting Wolcott subdivision lots 1 and 9 to existing permitted uses per AMC 21.40.050 unless a conditional use is approved to change this use, and then Section 2 will be amended to read Section 3. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Gray-Jackson. We have a second. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Okay.
Seconded.
Okay. Any other comments on the motion? Mr. Flynn.
Mr. Weaver, would you please come down? You knew we were going to ask, didn't you? So, I appreciate the amendment. My reading of the P&Z findings was that they would prefer the R3 lots to remain R3 because it's harder to get a rezone than it is to get a conditional use permit. I know there's also the issue of sufficient acreage. My thinking is it's probably better to leave them R3 and provide an exemption to that specific code requirement, but I'd appreciate your thoughts on the matter.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Flynn, that really is a dilemma, the acre and three-quarters requirement for a minimum acreage to apply for rezoning. We believed, discussed it with legal, that this was a route to go, to have a special limitation limiting those two lots which are residentially used to their existing uses. That code citation is residential, unless they applied for a conditional use for something else, which would require public hearing, which would involve the community and is appealable to the Board of Adjustment. So there would be a due process right. But you can do a standing provision to reduce the acre and three-quarters. But at that point in time, you start to look at spot zoning issue, and we just felt that the former was the better route to go.
You don't want us to do the Teshi treatment here? Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
Anyone else on the amendment?
I had a question for Mr. Weaver.
Mr. Starr.
In our packet, there's some process notes that talks about the fire department coming in and building code review of the structure. I guess I'm sort of ignorant as to why the building code, it's not really an update, you're sort of auditing compliance. Has that been done already, or do you have anticipations that it's going to be done?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Starr, it was done quite a few years ago. There were issues about access and penetrations in the wall there in the Tupperware building and the rescue mission, and those issues have been addressed.
Okay, and the sprinkler system discussion, where is that at with the...
There's no current discussion ongoing with that issue right now.
You guys are pretty comfortable with the facility being able to handle what we're going to allow it to do then?
I believe for the uses that are there, the fire department's okay with it.
Okay, great. Thanks. That's all I had.
Any other questions? Seeing, hearing none, please vote on the...
Yes. If I may I ask Ms. Garner a question, please?
Yes, you may.
Ms. Garner, would you mind coming back down for a second?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And first off, does any of this make any sense to you that we just talked about?
No.
Okay. That's fair.
I appreciated your comments, though, about the R3 lots, because that is an intrusion into a residential zone.
Right. So what this amendment would do, if we adopted it in this form, is say, okay, those two R3 lots are now PLI, but they have to abide by the R3 rules. So you can't develop them as public lands and institutions unless you go back and get a conditional use permit. Does that provide the kind of protection you're looking for?
I hear you, but I'm pretty conservative about that whole issue.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. That's what I want to know. Thank you very much, Ms. Garner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the amendment? Seeing and hearing none.
Mr. Hall?
Mr. Birch.
I just want to have from the petitioner, through the chair, to the petitioner, I just had a question regarding the intent regarding, I'm still looking at my air photo. It shows an access road coming from that north property. There's no intent for, you don't have anything on the drawing boards to expand to the north there or utilize, are those properties being used by just adjoining land or homeowners?
No, there's no intent to expand, and go ahead.
There's currently a fourplex on that property that we use as a part of our funding stream. So we cannot afford to lose that property. So we have absolutely no intention of changing those properties.
So you own it, you just don't intend to use it.
We own it. It has a residential fourplex on it, and what would happen is it would put us into a legal non-conforming status that we're in now with the rescue mission, with those going PLI, but we have no choice because that's the requirement to go 1.75 acres.
I think I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the amendment? Any at all? Please vote on the amendment.
What do we do? Yeah? I'm concerned about it. Okay.
The amendment passes unanimously. We're back to the original motion as amended. Mr. Training.
Just, I would appreciate the body voting on this. I'm not trying to move it into your neighborhood. It's in my neighborhood, not far from where I live. and they've been good neighbors. I couldn't say that in years past. Your coming into that was a godsend, because there were times in which I would have shut that place down and moved it to Mr. Flynn's neighborhood or somebody's. But you have done a really good job. I asked you to make some certain changes to make sure people coming in met the requirements they now meet. So we appreciate it. Let's get these people off the streets and into adequate housing, because every year we have people freezing to death out there, and I don't want to see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trini. Mr. Starr.
Ms. Engel down there? Or did she leave? Okay. I don't really need that. I do want to speak a little bit about this, because before I went into public service, I asked my pastor if I should go into mission field work or do this, and sometimes I wish I went into the mission field work. I think the exampling here is really appropriate for our society in terms of where we've gone and taken our faith-based communities. And I like the opportunity to put this in front of me, because it takes the pressure off of me to speak perhaps out of turn in the intermix between church and state or some of those other packagings. And I've seen from a practical sense here the faith-based community coming forward with very, very effective solutions. And I'll give the mayor credit for a lot of the initiatives in the cold weather initiative, reaching out to those churches and the groups that open their doors and their pocketbooks and all the other facility stresses that go with the cold weather management plan that worked very well this year. The snow's almost melted, and I thank God that there hasn't been bodies and things that in the past we've had. So I really appreciate the faith-based community from that perspective, and I caution government, and I caution government officials and elected officials to continue to perhaps divide that line and push the teachings of Jesus Christ out of our schools. And we send that message that that's an inappropriate place. But where are we going to get that sense of compassion that our children are going to adopt if, in fact, we can't talk about it in public venues such as our schools or teach that? So I don't want to push my faith on anybody, much less no one needs to hear it. But I think these examples allow us to bring that government solution together with the faith-based community that just startles me. This costs you money. This costs you time. This costs passing the plate, doing whatever you needed to do to come to government and reach out. And we should have reached out to you. And I think we can start to example more of that as we see these solutions take hold. So be good stewards. Take care of the folks that are in need for all of that, and reach out to your government for help, because I think we owe you, and I anticipate good things. So I'm a happy yes, I'm a proud yes, and an ability for that. So thank my body for listening to that spiel, but I'm very excited about seeing God's work here, and that's exactly what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Mr. Horniman.
Yeah, I too will be a yes vote, but I have to say that as I read through the public comments on the petition, and I heard the gentleman earlier and several folks that have talked with me specifically about the concerns around the neighborhood, I know it does not lie at the feet of the rescue mission, and I know that probably 95% or more of your residents are very responsible, working people that go in and out and have those reservations made much like a hotel. And I'm thankful that the rescue mission has served great purpose in this community. The fact is not lost on me that we can do better. I know we struggle, because the one gentleman who testified that he saw right out here by this park, in Lucy Cuddy Park, we see it all around Mountain View, downtown, even in front of the old City Hall and Town Park Strip and Town Square. So we can do better as a community. I know the rescue mission is carrying its water. I hate to ask you to do more. I just challenge you to find some way to reach out to your neighborhood, continue to reach out to your neighborhood. Yes, I've seen you at the university area constantly. You're a constant force and presence, and it really reassures the community members in that area. And I know those meetings aren't always heavily attended either, so sometimes some of your contention is a large percentage of the membership meeting that night. But we need to do better. I challenge us on the body to do whatever it takes to the administration. We hear it loud and clear. Campbell at Campbell Strip, that park, and Campbell Creek, and along that Folker Park, and across. There's just all around town. We need to do a little better. Weather's warming up. We're going to start seeing more people out and about, and a lot of bad things can happen, like the gentleman testified at 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning. if we're not vigilant and not doing our part as better community to better our community. So I'm going to vote yes. I think it's the right thing to do. You're asking us to make a paper approval so that you can continue your good work, so I wish you speed on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardeman. Mr. Flynn.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess we have a happy yes and a proud yes up here. I'm going to be a cautious yes. I understand why we amended this the way we amended this. I'm uncomfortable that it doesn't necessarily give as much protection to the residential area adjacent. And so, Ms. Garner, I'm afraid you're going to have to remain vigilant. I apologize for that. But I'm also, mindful of the fact that I have a fair amount of PLI stuff in my district, and you folks are generally deferential to me when we're working on those issues in my neighborhood, so I'll return the favor here tonight. But let's be thoughtful as we move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Mr. Trombley.
As a devout Catholic, I understand the calling that we have to take care of the poor, and I share in that mission with you. And I can't thank you enough for what you've done. When I ran for assembly the first time, I had an opportunity to speak with you. I'm not sure if you remember that, but I've been amazed at what you guys have been able to accomplish, and I look forward to what you guys will do for the next 22, 23 years. So keep it up, and you have an advocate here.
Thank you, Mr. Trombley. Ms. Osander.
I just want to share with the body that I actually concur with Mr. Flynn, but in deference to the folks, to you two who've done a lot of work on this, it's your district. I'm with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osander. There is no one in the queue. Please vote on the motion as amended. That motion carries unanimously. We're now moving into new public hearings. First item is AO number 41, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code, Chapter 16.
Mr. Chairman, we already postponed that one.
Oh, we continued that. I'm sorry. Yeah. 14B, AR 113, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating a contribution of $206,671 from the area-wide general CIP fund. Thank you. This item is before us. Anyone wish to speak? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this item is before us.
Move to approve.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, please vote. That item passes 10-1. Next before us is ARO 114, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $301,548. Thank you. This item is before us. Anyone to speak on it? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this item is before us.
Move to approve.
Any comments? Seeing and hearing none, please vote. That item passes unanimously. We are at that point of the evening for public testimony. Anyone wish to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, the chair would take a motion to adjourn. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.